Hello, friends. Thank you for joining me for part 19 of our 45 RPM vinyl records A to Z collection here at the Media Museum. And this was the special one I skipped over in the last episode. I wanted to start this episode off with it because there were a few things I wanted to say about it. This is a very special, not 45, it's 33 and a third RPM, but it's the 7-inch single size, is the same as a 45. And Fastway, if you're not familiar with Fastway, was a band formed by Fast Eddie Clarke, the guitarist from Motorhead, and Pete Way, the bassist from UFO. However, the bassist, Pete, he found out that he could not leave the company, Chrysalis, that he had a recording contract with, so he ended up dropping out of the band. He was replaced by Mickey Feet, but that was only after Rafaelito Benitez actually recorded on the first album. He never got any credit on the album, but if you look all this stuff up on Wikipedia, you can find this information is there to be had. They had the Humble Pie drummer, Jerry Shirley, and an unknown vocalist named Dave King. By the time you got to the second album, All Fired Up, Charlie McCracken had already replaced Mickey Feet on bass, so Mickey Feet never played on a single one of their albums, even though he was in the band and was the bassist for them for a while. And by the time you got to the third album, Waiting for the Roar, only Eddie and Dave remained, and they brought in 3 new members and recorded Waiting for the Roar and the Trick or Treat soundtrack. If you remember the Trick or Treat movie with Ozzy Osbourne, and I think Gene Simmons had a bit part in there too. That was a pretty interesting movie. Unfortunately, there's only a cheap, low-budget DVD available of that. Trick or Treat really needs to get some respect and get a good release on DVD. But getting back to this was included on the first pressings of the first album, Fastway. And that was the only way it was available. It was not on the cassette tape. It was added to the CD when the CD was originally released independently, but when they did the 2-for-1 with the first and second CDs on a CD, they dropped this track back off again. So this is kind of an obscure song somewhat. It was just done on this promotional disc added to the first printings only. If you bought the second, third, fourth printing of the album, you didn't get this vinyl with it. And what's really interesting is it's another one of those where the B-side is completely blank. There's no grooves, there's nothing on it, the label's blank. It was a one-song, one-sided, 7-inch pressing. So that makes that really interesting, and I realize I've already eaten up the bulk of this episode just talking about this one disc, but it's a special disc, and I did want to give you a little bit of background information about it and tell you about the band if you don't know the band. They're definitely a good band, worth listening. Those first 3 albums, 4 albums especially, are really good. So there you have it. Moving on now. We can get to the next disc in the box here, and that's the Fifth Estate doing Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead, the Wicked Witch is Dead, which is a novelty song for sure. I remember getting in trouble one time at work when my boss got fired and we were all singing this song, and my boss's boss came in and didn't take too kindly to that, but that's a fond memory for me now. B-side of that being a song called The Rub-a-Dub. Rub-a-dub-dub. Don't know that one as well, but I definitely have fond memories of Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead. And you could change the song the word witch to something else too and make it even more unacceptable. Alright, Firefall. Just remember I love you and it'll be alright. This is an original from my original collection as a kid. This is the one that I bought in 1977 when it came out. And you can see I took pretty good care of it, but I liked the song a lot, and it was a part of my original collection. B-side being Just Think, which isn't nearly as good a song, but Just Remember I Love You is a great addition to anyone's vinyl collection. And then we've got a picture sleeve here of The Firm doing Radioactive. If you're not familiar with The Firm, that was Jimmy Page's band after Led Zeppelin. It had Paul Rogers on vocals for him, from Bad Company and Free. Here's the sleeve, and you can see this is another one of those where I believe the glue has bled through to make it look kind of worn or cloudy. But it's not. If you look at it at an angle, you can see there's absolutely no damage to that label whatsoever. I believe it's just the glue bleeding through, messing it up for us. But great song, I'm a Radioactive. And I remember the guy they had on bass, can't tell you his name, but he played a fretless bass in the video, and I remember being really impressed with that. It's like, how can you play a fretless bass? I guess it takes some talent, and it's not easy to do. But if you see the video for Radioactive, the bassist is playing a fretless bass. It's interesting to see. B-side being a song called Together. And next up, we've got another firm picture sleeve, All the King's Horses. I believe this was from the second album, Mean Business. And that first one I just showed you was from the first album. But it's kind of cool. It's got like not a ninja, but shogun warrior on a horse there in a cloudy forested area. But Fortune Hunter is the B-side of this 45. And now you get to see the Paul Rogers, Jimmy Page, Julian Mendelsohn. I can't read that name either. All right, so here we go with All the King's Horses. Same labeling issue as on the other one. And the B-side being Fortune Hunter. All right, a huge Zeppelin fan. I really thought a lot of Jimmy Page. You know, he did a lot of session work. He's on a lot of songs that you may not even be aware of him being on before Zeppelin. So John Paul Jones and Jimmy Page, were session musicians, and that's where they met, and they knew each other from doing session work. I'm not sure if they ever played together on something. I seem to recall that there was a story about them being on a track or two together before Zeppelin, but Robert Plant and John Bonham knew each other, and John Bonham come along with Plant and Page and John Paul Jones, and there you got your Zeppelin. So anyways, First Class doing Beach Baby there on the sand, which I thought was a Beach Boys song for a long time. It sure sounds like one. The B-side being Both Sides of the Story, kind of an appropriate song title for a B-side. But no, that was a band called First Class, not the Beach Boys. And next up, we've got Five Man Electrical Band doing Signs Everywhere the Signs. Not one of my favorite songs. And even when Tesla, which I loved Tesla, especially their first album, Mechanical Resonance is awesome album. Even when they redid it, I didn't care for it. So I do have two copies of it here. They are very similar. You'll see the printing's a little smaller, and the colors are a little more faded on this one. See, it's bigger. But it still has the exact same B-side. Hello, Melinda, Goodbye. And here we have Hello, Melinda, Goodbye in a slightly smaller font with a slightly more faded label. Actually, that side of that label might actually be a little more colorful than this one. But there's not a lot of difference between those two copies, so we'll move on to a picture sleeve of the Fixes song, One Thing Leads to Another, which, as far as 80 songs go, that's a pretty decent one. This is a remixed and edited version. I don't know if you can see that. I can't see it in the viewer, so I'll get it up here where you can see that. So the 45 is not the same as what you would hear on the album. It's going to have some slight variances, some slight differences. And here it is. One Thing Leads to Another, running 3 minutes and 23 seconds. Off of Reach the Beach, which I actually have a copy of that album that was left behind at my place from a party, and I never saw the person who brought it again. So it was just a freebie for throwing a party. But even here it says remixed edited version right there on the label. And the B-side being a song called Opinions. Now, I haven't pulled the album out or pulled it up on the internet to look at the play times to see how different this version may be, but it does make it kind of special to have because it's not the same you would hear if you put the album on. So there's a nice Kmart price tag, which in this neck of the woods, Kmart's gone for good now too, kind of like the Montgomery Ward's price tag I showed you in the last episode. No more Kmart, no more Montgomery Ward, so many things have faded away. But this is Fleetwood Mac and Go Your Own Way, Lindsey Buckingham composition. And this 45 is somewhat famous for having Silver Springs on the B-side of it. And we have shown you numerous copies of this. I think I even had it in box 10, and it was probably one of the earlier mixed boxes too. I could have 4 or 5 copies of this easily. But in this box, I've only got this one. And Silver Springs was a song that was intended to be on Rumors, and Stevie thought it was going to be on Rumors, and it ended up not being on Rumors. If you go buy Rumors on CD now, they have since added it back on. But at the time, that was the only place to get that song, was on the B-side of that 45. And so here's another Fleetwood Mac, and we've got Stevie Nicks' Gypsy off of Mirage. And it's a really, really great Stevie Nicks song that I enjoy very much. And the B-side on that was a song called Cool Water. So the only 2 Fleetwood Macs in this original A to Z collection. I'm surprised at that, because I got a lot more 45s of Fleetwood Macs since then. But we'll show you one last shot of that Gene Vincent Bebopalua, just to make sure that I did show Women in Love on the back. So, come on back. It's going to be part 20 already. And we're only halfway through the second box. Have a great day.